Well, the first memories, they're basically of criminality that I don't want to discuss on camera, that involve stolen checkbooks and blind drug dealers. I lived near London, only 20 miles from London, but that was a mythical city. So Manchester was even more mythical, especially because I grew up with a fascination with factory records. So it was quite a mythical place. So with this kind of hidden underground culture, and I've always, from a young child, I was always drawn to the hidden. It's why I'm covered in tattoos, because they were forbidden by my father. So I was totally drawn to have tattoos. And Manchester, Liverpool, a lot of Leeds, a lot of the major cities in the north, they were quite exotic to a teenager brought up in the home counties. So I was just naturally drawn to them. And as I say, because of the music of Joy Division, Section 25, A Certain Ratio, I wanted to visit the place where the birthplace of that music. The first visit was great. I seem to remember a friend of mine was at university here, and I think he lived. I think it was actually Salford the first time I came to Manchester, and stayed in his flat. I don't really remember. I don't think I went to the Hacienda. I think I went to. I think it was the PSV. It was just like a concrete block in the middle of it was in Hume or somewhere, wasn't it? Yeah. I think that was my first visit to Manchester there, and where I met the aforesaid mentioned blind drug dealer, the Crescents, the block of flat. Are you from Manchester? Yeah. Do you remember the Crescents? Yeah. Well, basically, I'll tell the story. It's not, I don't think I'm going to get anyone in trouble. It was 30 years ago. But basically, went to the PSV. I recognised a member of A Certain Ratio. They had a new guitarist, this black lad. I think it was called Anthony. And we were looking to score some pot. And got introduced to this guy who was blind. His guide dog was underneath the table, and he said, yeah, when the gig had finished, he went, I'll come back to my flat. So me and two friends were left alone in a flat with a blind drug dealer and a fridge full of narcotics. To say it was a moral dilemma is an understatement. But we were good boys. We didn't take advantage of the situation. But that's my earliest memory of Manchester. That and the stolen checkbooks, which I won't discuss on camera.
Was there any advantage of him being blind?
No, it was a massive disadvantage. The fact he let three cockneys into his flat. He was blind, and he had a fridge full of drugs. Yeah, the disadvantage was it tested our moral fibre, but we behaved ourselves and didn't steal any of his gear. Well, of course it is. A working class, industrial working class towns where people worked 6 days a week and had one holiday a year. They're going to make the most of it. And also as well, you didn't drink water. Even the early 20th century, especially not in the 19th century, 18th century. The water was unsafe to drink, so you drank beer. You'd have beer for your breakfast. So you're working 6 days a week, and you're drinking beer for breakfast. Yeah, I guess it's going to bring the hedonist out in people, I would say. I think the creativity of Manchester comes from the fact that it's not London, and they want to prove. It's the same with a lot of northern industrial cities. They've got something to prove. The whole world revolves around London for fashion and music, film, literature. So I'd imagine there's people that live in the north that want to stand up and prove that London isn't the centre of the universe. Well, again, sadly, I'm not painting a very nice picture of myself, but again, it involves criminality, because the nascent acid house scene up here, it was developing in London. It wasn't even called acid house then. The scene in London was very small. It was very small up here. I had friends up here, so I can't remember what night it was, maybe a nude night or something. It was a midweek night. Nude was like a Wednesday or Thursday, wasn't it? So I thought, enterprising young man I am, I'll bring a bag of ecstasy up to Manchester because the business opportunities will be manifold. So I did indeed bring a bag of these up to Manchester, and through various contacts, not loads, but I was selling them in the Hacienda in that little corner as you're going on the left, which later became the sort of Happy Mondays corner. And I was a hero, I was taken to parties, and I was man of the moment. So I thought, right, I want to winner here. So 2 weeks later, I thought I'd repeat the same exercise. But in that 2 weeks, obviously things had changed. My friends, I turned around to see one of my friends being held by the throat off the ground by one of the locals, and I was chased out of the building. So in that literally in a matter of weeks, it had gathered pace. Oh yeah, of course I was into music from about the age of 11. You know, that's why I was drawn. That's why I was drawn to Manchester. You know, as interesting as the history and the architecture is, it was the music and the literary influences, and you know, mainly the influence of Factory and all it represented that drew me to Manchester. I wasn't necessarily just into house music. I mean, there wasn't that much house music. It was hardly any when I first came to Manchester, but. Yeah, it was the legacy of Factory that drew me to Manchester, as it did with a lot of people from London. It's very important because, technically speaking, and I know a lot of people from London will hate me for saying this, house music per se took off in the north before it did in London. There was a nascent scene in London, but it wasn't necessarily, it was more, for want of a better word, Balearic. The Shum was playing house records, it was playing German electronic, new beat, post-punk. Basically, what they'd done is they'd gone to Amnesia and bought all the records back that Alfredo was playing. They weren't necessarily, you know, there was it's kind of 50-50 house and kind of Balearic stuff. And in London, people, the Watson brothers had tried to put on a house night at the Astoria in London, and got derided and got booed. What are you playing this disco shit for? And there was a house tour. I can't remember who was on it. Marshall Jefferson. It was quite a big sort of house, you know, early house tour. It came to London. Nobody turned up. It went to Manchester, and there was queues around the block. So Manchester got house music. Although the seeds of acid house, the nascent acid house scene, is a very London-centric thing. House music, as a genre, was understood in the north before it was in London, which I assume, you know, it's just a hangover from Northern Soul. Northern Soul was driving American black music from Detroit and the environs, and hey, guess what? So's techno, and so the Northerners got it because they already had Northern Soul DNA coursing through their blood.
I was just going to ask you that question, whether it was not when you thought Northern Soul came into it.
Well, of course it is. So Northern Soul is driving America underground, driving uncommercial dance music. You know, which is what house and techno was. It still is to a certain extent. Not a lot, to be honest with you. You know, it's that cliche about the 60s. If you can remember it, you weren't there. You know, if you can remember the early 90s, you weren't there. You know, I'd really love to help you out. It's why I haven't written an autobiography, because I haven't got a fucking clue. It's obviously the whole world has changed. The industrial infrastructure of England, especially the north of England, has been decimated. But there's still that die-hard attitude. You know, people aren't working in factories, but they're still in the north of England, and they're still being fed this fable that London is where it's at, and they're still trying to maintain an identity, which they're doing admirably, to prove that London isn't the centre of the universe.
Grafting to prove your worth.
Huh?
Grafting to prove your worth.
Well, yeah, exactly, yeah. Well, what can I say about the warehouse project? They pay up front, they put me in a nice hotel, and they buy me dinner. What more can you ask from a promoter? Yeah, no, it's great. It's a mixed bag. It's a great crowd. I mean, to be honest with you, I prefer my art in intimate surroundings. You know, any form of music. You know, I'd rather listen to music in a small enclosed environment. If push came to shove, I'd rather play in an intimate club. So when I do play for these bigger things, they've got to be run well. They've got to be run by people that love the music, and not just careerists and money grabbers. And that's what I like about the Warehouse project. Is it's run by, it's a big event. You know, it's a big event. It's a warehouse thing. It's kind of commercial, but it's not blatantly commercial. You know, the music policy is always forward thinking, and the crowd. It's the age range is kind of 18 to old enough to know better. You know, people almost as old as myself. Well, it's a big part of my growing up. You know, music, literature, art. You know, a general northern, at the risk of appearing to be a patronising southerner. You know, it is that grit and that is that determination, and it is that. You know, it's the same. It's why I like going to North. It's why I like going to Glasgow, because it's a no bullshit attitude. and there's a certain loyalty. There's a certain loyalty with the North. In London, it's very fashion orientated, and even if you have proved yourself, you can be pushed aside easily with the vagaries of fashion. But in the North, especially in Manchester, it was difficult to break through. But once you've proved yourself, people are loyal to you. They'll stay with you. You know, whatever fashions come and go, they'll honour you for the fact that you've got some heritage and you put the work in, and you've endeavoured to not just swan up here and the big I am from London. You know, I'm the fashionable new thing. That doesn't cut it here. It really doesn't cut it. You've got to prove yourself, and once you have, they'll stick with you.
Cool. Thank you.
All right.